thank you for giving us, I think, your first interview as chief executive of Rio Tinto with very ambitious plans. You're one of the biggest producers of iron ore that's used in steel making extremely polluting. What do you now need to achieve to make sure that your goals are stuck to?
Yeah, look, fighting climate change is a challenge for us. We have a big carbon footprint. But it also is a huge opportunity for us because fundamentally it's a very physical transition of the society we live in. Yeah. It's an energy transition. You need more solar cells, wind turbines, transmission lines, electrical vehicles, all requiring the materials that we are producing. But the problem we have right now is we first have to decarbonize our chains.
Which is expensive and difficult.
Very expensive. And we've just laid out plans where we will invest directly $7.5 billion, but initiate much more investments in this decade in order to achieve 50% reduction of our carbon footprint by the end of the decade. It's an ambitious plan, but it's doable. But it's our part in order to also benefit from the growth that comes from the energy transition.
But, so when will we be able to know a lot more about Scope 3? This is the hard part because it's basically when you give the iron ore to the steel makers, it's how they decarbonize. So what's the plan there?
Well, first of all, the challenge for steel makers is even bigger than it is for us as miners. But I see them doing a lot. A lot is happening in China right now. We do research and development with them, with Japan and in Europe, etc. It has to be a cooperation. The major part of the solution is with the steelmaker, but part of it is with us as miners in terms of the quality of product we are delivering, etc., etc. And we are exploring various options. And one of the options that we are exploring is, for example, is there an opportunity for the first part of the steel making, the iron making, the reduction part, should that be done, green ironing, is that something that we could participate more actively in? So we are actually doing an awful lot in that respect.
Is China very committed? So we were disappointed by what came out of the G20. So we don't really have an agreement on, for example, domestic coal plants. We don't really have an agreement on this global methane summit. So what can we achieve from now?
2050 is very far out. I think people has to focus a little bit on the short term, what is actually really happening. And the reality is China is ahead when it comes to installing renewable energy. Their program is incredibly ambitious. They are ahead when it comes to penetration of electrical vehicles. So we just see a lot going on the ground in China.
In terms of timeline, when will you be able to set out your emissions for Scope 2?
For Scope 3, we have our action plans now. We released that at our Capital Markets Day last week. But what we now need to monitor is what will the industry, the steel makers do. And therefore we plan as part of our annual report to be more numerical about it. What is important right now is to tell what are we doing. But at the end of the day, Scope 3, we can never be 100% in control of.
When you look at what else we're not in control of is, of course, the energy crisis, it's freight around the world, and the fact that the economy seems to be stalling once again. Does it make it harder for you to achieve your climate goals because of the difficult environment we see?
No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, obviously, we were very lucky at the beginning of the year, and we had our best half year ever in the first half, where the economy was growing a lot. Right now, the economy is slowing down, and that probably makes sense because, as you say, we're struggling to move things around in the world, and there's a looming energy crisis, and ultimately it will have an impact. But I think it's a shorter-term impact. It's a matter of the world to solve its supply chain issues.
How much inflationary pressure are you seeing across your products?
Well, for sure, there was a lot of inflation induced in the first half where the world was growing at a high pace. But yes, it's one of the challenges.
What does that mean? I mean, do you hedge? Do your clients ask for a little bit of time? It must be actually a hell of something to deal with.
It hasn't been that bad for us, and quite frankly, we have also benefited from part of the inflation comes from higher commodity prices.
What does it mean for China? Where are we in China right now? If there continues to be that zero COVID tolerance policy, is it difficult for you to ship things from China?
The whole logistics works extremely well. personally, as a CEO, I'm very sad that I still haven't been able to travel to China, where my biggest customers are. But it's a difficult world for all of us with COVID.
What's your relationship with steelmakers right now? Is there some kind of agreement that you would give them, for example, monetize or to try and help fund some of their efforts to become more green?
Ultimately, first of all, we have very good, very long-term relationships with our customers that we have worked with for decades, and that's where we, Tinto and China, are very aligned. We always think in a very long-term horizon, and therefore it's natural for us to form research and development corporations, including we have with Chinese universities, etc. But the problem with R&D is that as a businessman, I like to see results very quickly, but R&D unfortunately often takes a little longer. You're pushing me as well, when can you come with a Scope 3 result? But very often it takes a long time. Let me give you an example. We're trying to decarbonize completely aluminium with our ELYSIS project. This project has been going on for 20 years. Yeah. And now it starts really being promising, and we might be able to change a 100-year-old manufacturing method. But it just takes time. And therefore, what we need now, the world, in order to achieve 2050, the world needs to put in a lot of seeds of research and development in order to have the breakthroughs necessary.
Are you frustrated by the lack of time or by the speed at which progress is being made? So you're a new chief executive. What's the thing that's most frustrating in your job?
No, look, I don't look at it like that, because there's so much we can do with existing technology, and we haven't done enough. And what I said when we were announcing our targets at the Capital Markets Days, we are now starting an internal race, because there's much, much more we can do. And we will do. Our thousands of engineers who are used to classical energy solutions now have to think about renewable energy solutions. That's for us to do. But you can't solve 100% of the CO2 without some breakthrough in technology. And there, I think the world will have to be patient, because R&D just takes longer.
I mean, patience how? So when will we see green steel?
Well, but look, the way we look at it, 2030, we want to have halved our carbon footprint. And I want by 2030 to have a very clear pathway without a lot of uncertainty towards zero.